You never forget the moment your world shifts, the second when everything you believed about strength, about being fine, crumbles like sand beneath your feet. For Jake Matthews, that moment came at 2:14 a.m., when he sat on the edge of his bed in a dark apartment, phone in hand, finger hovering over the contact named Emily. He hadn't spoken to her in weeks. Not since the fight. Not since he pushed her away. But in that instant, with a heart drowning in silence and a mind screaming for something, anything, Jake realized he didn't need a friend. He needed her. Jake was the kind of guy people liked being around. Funny, charming, always the one cracking a joke at work or picking up the tab at a bar. From the outside, his life looked ideal. A decent job at a tech firm in Chicago, a downtown apartment, an active social life. But Jake had grown up knowing how to wear masks. His father taught him early, don't show weakness. Ever. So Jake never did. Not when his mother left. Not when his father drank more than he spoke. Not even when he got that call 3 years ago about his dad's heart attack. Jake didn't cry. He showed up, handled the funeral, went back to work, and smiled like he always did. Enter Emily Rivera. She was the exact opposite. Fierce, empathetic, stubborn. The kind of person who asked how you were and waited for the truth. They met at a volunteer event for foster kids. Jake thought it was ironic. He didn't even like kids, but his company was pushing community hours. Emily was leading a painting activity, sleeves covered in color, and eyes bright with purpose. She made fun of his stiff posture, dragged him into a messy finger painting game, and by the end of the day, Jake found himself laughing in a way he hadn't in years. Not just laughing, feeling. They became friends. Real friends. Not just bar buddies or casual brunch types. She saw through him, called him out, challenged him, and in return, he offered her his loyalty, the only kind of love he really understood. For 2 years, she was his safe place. His lifeline. And then he broke it. It wasn't anything dramatic. No betrayal. No cheating. Just walls. Jake began pulling away. Every time she asked if he was okay, he'd nod and change the subject. When she invited him to her sister's wedding, he said he was busy. When she cried after losing her job, he didn't know how to comfort her, so he offered solutions. Cold, clinical solutions. Emily didn't want fixing. She wanted Jake, messy, vulnerable, real Jake. Their final conversation before the silence wasn't loud. No screaming. Just disappointment. I don't know what you want from me, he'd said, tired and closed off. I want the truth, she whispered. The real you. But maybe you're not ready to let anyone in. Maybe you never were. He didn't chase her when she walked away. He told himself she'd come back. But weeks passed, and silence grew like ivy around his heart. Then came that night, 2:14 a.m., the loneliness louder than his pride. His finger hovered, then tapped. She answered. Jake. The sound of her voice cracked something open in him. The mask slipped, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't pretend. I'm not okay, Em, he whispered. I haven't been okay for a long time. She didn't say, I told you so. She didn't scold or sigh. She just listened, the way only someone who still cared would. They met the next day. Jake, nervous and raw, told her everything. About the nights he couldn't sleep. The weight of pretending. The fear that if someone really saw him, truly saw him, they'd leave. Emily reached across the table, her hand on his, eyes soft. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. Over the next few months, Jake started therapy. Emily encouraged it, even offered to wait in the car during his first session. He resisted, then gave in. And for the first time, he began to unravel the knotted grief he'd kept buried for decades. It wasn't easy. Healing rarely is. Some days he shut down. Some days he wanted to quit. But Emily stayed. Not to fix him, but to walk beside him. She introduced him to her favorite hiking trail when the noise in his head got too loud. They built new routines, Saturday morning coffees, shared books, and long drives where they talked about everything and nothing. Slowly, Jake learned that strength didn't mean silence. That vulnerability wasn't weakness. That sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is say, I need help. One night, under a starlit sky on her apartment rooftop, Jake turned to her. You saved me, he said, voice barely above a whisper. Emily smiled, brushing her hand against his cheek. No, she said. You saved yourself. I just didn't let you forget how. They never labeled what they had. Not immediately. Love, friendship, lifeline, it all blurred. But what mattered more than the label was the bond. Unshakable. Real. Years later, Jake would stand in front of a room full of people, giving a speech at a mental health awareness fundraiser. He told his story, not the polished, picture-perfect version, but the messy, human one. And at the end, he looked into the crowd, found her eyes, and said, "I used to think I had to carry the weight of the world alone. But then someone reminded me that even in our darkest moments, we're not beyond saving. That sometimes, all it takes, is one person who refuses to give up on you." The audience rose to their feet, some wiping tears. But Jake didn't look for applause. He looked at Emily, the woman who had been more than a friend. The woman who had been his lifeline. In life, we all wear masks. We all face silent battles. But the story of Jake and Emily reminds us of this. Even when we feel lost, even when we think no one sees us, sometimes, someone does. And sometimes, that someone doesn't just become a friend. They become the reason we keep going. If you're struggling, don't do it alone. There is always someone who cares. You matter. You are not alone.